My name is Emily. And if there's one thing I've loved more than anything else in this world, it's music. When I was little, I used to sit by the window every evening, waiting for the neighbor to play his violin. The sound would float through the thin walls of our broken house like a secret message meant only for me. Soft, gentle, trembling, yet strong enough to make me believe in beauty, even in a place filled with pain. I remember once, when I was 7, I found a broken violin in the trash behind our street. Its strings were torn, its wood was cracked, but when I picked it up, I felt as if I had found a piece of my soul. That night, I held it to my chest and whispered, "One day, I'll make you sing again." Life in our home was never easy. My father worked long hours, but he carried his bitterness back with him, hidden inside bottles of alcohol. My mother was gentle but always tired, her body weakened by sickness we could not afford to cure. But in all that darkness, the violin became my secret light. I would sit in the corner of our tiny room, running my fingers across its broken strings, pretending I could play a song that could heal my family, a song strong enough to silence the anger in my father's voice and gentle enough to ease my mother's pain. Sometimes my little sister Lily would sit beside me, clapping her tiny hands and saying, "Play again, Emily. Play again." And even though there was no real sound, she believed. And because she believed, so did I. But dreams are fragile things. And in a house like ours, even music could not escape the weight of silence and sorrow. Still, I held onto that violin, because deep down I knew it wasn't just wood and strings. It was hope, and hope was all I had. My father's footsteps were always heavy. Each thud against the wooden floor made my chest tighten, because I never knew which version of him would appear. The tired father who once carried me on his shoulders when I was small? Or the angry man who drowned himself in alcohol and poured his rage onto us? Most nights, it was the second one. He would stumble into the room, his eyes red, his hands shaking. My mother would lower her gaze, as if silence could protect her. Lily would hide behind me, clutching my shirt with her tiny fingers. And I would hold my broken violin close to my chest, as if it could shield me. One night, he noticed it. "The violin. What's that useless piece of wood you're always holding?" he barked. I whispered, "It's mine. I'm going to fix it one day." His laugh was bitter, cruel. "Fix it? Dreams won't put food on this table, Emily. Music won't save you. You'll learn soon enough life doesn't care about songs." His words cut deeper than any blow, because part of me feared he was right. That night, after he passed out on the sofa, I sat in the corner, holding my violin and shaking. My tears fell onto the cracked wood, and I whispered, "Don't listen to him. You're not useless. You're all I have." The anger in his voice never left me. It followed me into my sleep, into my mornings, into every corner of my heart. But so did the sound of music I carried inside me, the sound of what could be, if only I was brave enough to hold on to it. And so, even in the face of his rage, I promised myself, one day I would play. One day my music would be louder than his anger. If my father's anger was fire, my mother's silence was ice. She never shouted, never argued, never defended herself. Instead, she let the storm pass over her like a tree bowing under the wind, waiting for the night to end. I used to watch her as she sat by the window, her thin hands folded in her lap, her lips pressed tightly together. Her eyes seemed to live in a world far away, as though she had already given up on this one. One evening, I sat beside her and whispered, "Mama, why don't you say something?" Why don't you tell him to stop?" She turned her head slowly, her face pale, her eyes tired. And with a trembling smile, she said, "Because silence keeps the peace, Emily. If I speak, the storm grows louder." Her words broke me, because I didn't want peace made of silence and fear. I wanted a home where laughter could breathe, where music could live, where Lily could grow without hiding behind my back. That night, as she coughed quietly into her hands, I saw the red stains on her handkerchief. My chest tightened with a fear I couldn't name. I wanted to scream, to beg her to fight, to not fade away into shadows. But her silence was stronger than my words. So I picked up my broken violin, sat at her feet, and pretended to play. She closed her eyes, leaned back, and whispered, "It sounds beautiful, Emily." Even though no sound came out, she heard it anyway. Maybe because she wanted to. Or maybe because in that moment, we both needed to believe that music was still alive. That night, I realized something. My father had anger. My mother had silence. But me, I had music. And maybe, just maybe, it could save us. If there was any light in our house, it was my little sister Lily. She was only 6, but somehow she carried more hope in her tiny heart than all of us combined. When Father shouted, Lily would cover her ears and whisper, "It's okay, Emily. He'll stop soon." When Mother coughed and grew weaker each day, Lily would sit by her side, braiding her hair with clumsy fingers, saying, "Mama, you're still the prettiest." And when I picked up my broken violin, Lily's eyes would sparkle. She would clap and giggle, "Play my song, Emily. Play the one that makes the stars come out." I didn't know what song she meant, but I would close my eyes, move my fingers on the empty strings, and hum softly. And Lily, oh Lily, she believed she could hear it. She would twirl around the room barefoot, laughing, as if the whole world had turned into a stage just for her. Her smile was my strength. In a house filled with anger and silence, her laughter was the only music that truly existed. One night, when Father came home drunk and threw a plate across the room, Lily ran to me instead of hiding. She hugged my waist tightly and whispered, "Don't be scared, Emily. One day, you'll take me far away. You'll play your violin on a big stage, and I'll sit in the front row, clapping the loudest." Her words sank deep into my soul, because I knew she believed in me in ways no one else did. And for her, for Lily, I wanted to believe too. That night, when everyone was asleep, I sat by the window, holding my violin, staring at the stars. I whispered a promise. "One day, Lily, one day I'll make you smile forever. I'll play for you, not just in this broken house, but in a world where no one can hurt us." And for the first time in a long time, I let myself dream. Not for me, but for her. Dreams are fragile things. They shine bright in the darkness, but reality has a way of crushing them, piece by piece. Every night, I dreamed of standing on a stage, a real violin in my hands, the world silent as they waited for me to play. In my dreams, I wasn't the daughter of an angry man or the child of a silent mother. I wasn't poor. I wasn't afraid. I was simply Emily, the girl who made music. But when I woke up, I was back in that small, broken room. The smell of alcohol lingering in the air. The sound of my mother's weak cough. The fear of my father's heavy footsteps. And in those mornings, my dream felt so far away, it almost hurt to remember it. One evening, after Father had left the house in a storm of curses, I sat by the window with Lily. She leaned against my shoulder and asked, "Emily, Do you think dreams come true? I hesitated. My lips wanted to say yes, but my heart was heavy. So instead, I whispered, sometimes, Lily, if we hold on tight enough. She smiled softly, her eyes glowing with a faith I didn't have. Then I'll hold on for both of us. You just keep playing, okay? Her words broke me, because she believed in a world where my music could set us free, while I struggled to believe it myself. That night, when I closed my eyes, I tried to imagine the sound of my violin whole, unbroken, alive. I tried to hear the music that had lived inside me since I was a child. But reality was louder. The shattering of bottles, the sharpness of father's anger, the silence of mother's fading voice. And in that war between dreams and reality, I realized something. If I didn't fight for my dream, reality would swallow us whole. It happened on a gray afternoon when the rain was tapping gently against the window. I was sitting in the corner with my broken violin, tracing the cracks on its wooden body with my fingertips, when I heard a knock at the door. It wasn't Father. His knocks were always violent, angry. This one was gentle, almost kind. When Mother opened the door, there stood an old man with a cane and a worn-out coat. His name was Mr. Harris, a retired music teacher who lived 2 streets away. He had seen me once, sitting by the window, pretending to play my violin. And somehow, in that moment, he recognized the hunger in my eyes, the hunger for music. I used to teach at the conservatory, he said softly. And I can see when a child carries music in their soul. May I help her? My mother hesitated, glancing at the shadows of my father in the house. But then she stepped aside. For the first time in years, someone brought light into our home. Mr. Harris placed a small, worn violin case on the table. My breath caught in my chest. Inside was a violin, not new, not shiny, but whole, unbroken, real. My hands trembled as he placed it in my lap. Go on, he encouraged. Play what's inside you. At first, my fingers shook. The bow felt heavy. The strings resisted my touch. But then, as I closed my eyes, I thought of Lily's laughter, of my mother's tired smile, of all the nights I dreamed of this moment. And I played. The sound wasn't perfect, it was raw, uneven, but it was alive. The first real music I had ever created filled the room, and Lily clapped her hands, her eyes shining brighter than the rain outside. My mother pressed a hand to her lips, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For the first time, our house wasn't filled with anger or silence. It was filled with music. That night, when everyone else had fallen asleep, I whispered to the violin, "You're my chance, my way out, my hope." And deep inside, I felt it. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something greater. Hope is never free. Every dream we chase has a cost, and I learned that far too quickly. When Father returned home that night, he found Lily humming the melody I had played on the violin. His eyes narrowed, his fists clenched. And then he saw the instrument resting by my side. "Where did you get this?" he roared, staggering closer, the smell of alcohol heavy on his breath. I froze, clutching the violin as if it were a lifeline. Mother tried to step between us, her frail voice trembling. It was a gift. Please, let her keep it. But Father's anger was a storm. A gift? While I break my back to feed this house, she plays toys. His words cut deeper than any blade. His hand rose, and for a moment, I thought he would strike me. But instead, he grabbed the violin case and hurled it against the wall. The sound of wood cracking filled the room, and my heart cracked with it. Lily screamed, running to my side, wrapping her tiny arms around me. Tears blurred my vision, but I held her tightly, whispering, "Don't cry, Lily, don't cry." Mr. Harris returned the next day, finding the broken violin in the corner. He sighed, his eyes filled with sorrow, but also determination. He took it back with him, promising to repair it. "Music must survive, Emily," he told me, "even if people try to silence it." But after that night, Father's cruelty grew heavier. He forbade me from visiting Mr. Harris, threatened to throw me out if I ever touched a violin again. Still, in the silence of midnight, when everyone else was asleep, I hummed the melodies I could no longer play. I imagined the bow in my hand, the strings beneath my fingers. Music lived inside me, even when it had no voice. And Lily, sweet, innocent Lily, never stopped believing. She would tug my hand and whisper, "One day, Emily, you'll play again. One day, I'll see you on that big stage." Her faith was my fuel. But faith alone could not protect us from Father's wrath. Darkness does not arrive all at once. It creeps in quietly through broken nights, through bruised silences, through the weight of words that crush the soul. Father's anger became a shadow that followed me everywhere. Every sound of his footsteps sent shivers down my spine. Every slam of the door made Lily cling to me tighter. He was no longer just a man. I began to see him as the monster who devoured everything we loved. One evening, when the rain poured harder than ever, he came home drenched, furious, his hands trembling with rage. His eyes were wild, red with drink. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" he shouted, grabbing me by the arm. His grip was iron, and pain shot up my shoulder. "You think music will save you? Music won't put food on the table. Music won't keep this roof over our heads." I wanted to scream back, to tell him that his drinking, his violence, his silence was what kept us starving, not my dreams. But fear locked my throat. Mother tried to stop him, her weak body trembling as she stepped forward. "Please, please leave her be." He shoved her aside, and she collapsed against the wall, coughing violently. Lily cried out, running to her side, her little hands shaking as she tried to help. And me? I stood frozen, my heart splitting in two. I wanted to fight back, but I was just a girl. A girl with nothing but music in her veins and hope clutched too tightly in her hands. That night, when the house finally fell into a heavy silence, I held Lily in my arms as she sobbed into my chest. I stroked her hair and whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. "I'll get us out of here," I told her, my voice trembling but firm. "One day, Lily. One day we'll be free of him." The truth? I didn't know how, but I knew I had to believe. Because if I stopped believing, if I let the darkness consume me completely, then we'd have nothing left at all. And as I whispered those words into the night, I prayed silently that the violin would return, that Mr. Harris would keep his promise, and that music would once again save me from the silence. Weeks passed. Each day felt heavier than the last. Father's temper grew colder, sharper, like the winter air creeping into every crack of our small house. But then one morning, there was a gentle knock at the door. Mother opened it, and there stood Mr. Harris, his old coat damp from the rain, his eyes carrying both sadness and hope. In his hands, he held a violin case. My heart stopped. He stepped inside and placed it carefully on the table. With trembling fingers, I opened it, and there it was. My violin. Repaired. Whole again. The wood polished, the cracks mended, the strings shining faintly in the dim light. "It's not perfect," Mr. Harris said softly, "but neither are we. Still, it sings. And so will you." Tears filled my eyes as I picked it up. The weight was familiar, comforting, like an old friend returning after a long exile. That night, when Father was gone, I sat in the quiet room with Lily by my side. I lifted the bow and drew it across the strings. The first note trembled, raw and aching, but alive. And then came another, and another. Music filled the silence of our broken home once again. Lily clapped her hands, her face glowing with joy. "Emily, it's back. You're back." Mother sat in the corner, tears sliding silently down her face. She didn't speak, but I saw it in her eyes. Pride, relief, love. For a moment, it felt as though the darkness had loosened its grip. For a moment, hope breathed again. But deep inside, I knew this gift carried a price. If Father ever discovered the violin's return, his fury would be greater than before. Still, as I played, I made a promise to myself, to Lily, to Mother. No matter the cost, I would not let my music die again. Happiness never lasted long in our house. It was fragile, like a glass left on the edge of a table, always one touch away from shattering. For weeks, I played only when Father was gone. At night, Lily would beg, "One more song, Emily, please," and I would play softly until her eyes drifted shut. Music became her lullaby, her shield against nightmares. But secrets cannot stay hidden forever. One evening, Father returned earlier than expected. I didn't hear the door until it slammed against the wall. I froze mid-note, the bow still trembling on the strings. His eyes locked onto me. The violin, the sound, the defiance. "What is this?" he hissed, his voice low, dangerous. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. Mother rushed forward, stammering, "Please," she was only. But Father shoved her aside. His fists clenched. "You dare disobey me?" He lunged for the violin. Instinctively, I held it close, stepping back. "No, please don't." For a second, the room was silent except for Lily's terrified sobs. And then his hand struck. Not me, but the violin. He tore it from my grasp and hurled it against the floor. The sound of wood snapping echoed like thunder in my chest. My knees buckled as I let out a cry I didn't even know I had inside me. Lily screamed, throwing herself at the broken pieces, clutching them as if she could mend them with her tiny hands. "Stop! Stop!" she cried, her little body shaking. Father's shadow towered over us. His voice was a growl. "No more music in this house. Ever." That night, I sat beside Lily as she held a fragment of the violin's neck, refusing to let go. Her tears stained the wood. I couldn't sleep. My chest burned with grief and rage. The violin had been my voice, my soul, and he had silenced it again. But in the silence, a seed of resolve grew inside me. If he thought breaking the instrument would break me, he was wrong. I would find a way to rise, even if I had to crawl through the ashes of everything I loved. The house was silent after Father's outburst, but it wasn't the kind of silence that soothed. It was heavy, suffocating, filled with unspoken pain. The broken pieces of my violin still lay scattered across the floor. Lily had cried herself to sleep with one fragment clutched tightly in her hand. Mother sat in the corner, her eyes red, staring at nothing. I picked up what was left, the splintered wood, the twisted strings. My hands shook, not from fear this time, but from the weight of loss. That violin wasn't just an instrument. It was the last piece of my father, the real one, the gentle man who had loved me before he changed. And now, even that was gone. Days turned into weeks. Father's anger grew, but so did something inside me. A quiet rebellion. I began to write. On scraps of paper, in the margins of old newspapers, anywhere I could. I wrote songs I could no longer play, words I could no longer sing out loud. My music lived in ink now instead of sound. Every night, I whispered those words to Lily. She would close her eyes and smile, imagining the melodies that only existed in my heart. Emily, she whispered one night, they can break the violin, but they can't break you. Her words struck deeper than she knew. But life had a cruel way of testing even the strongest promises. Mother's health began to fail. Her coughing grew worse, her body weaker. She tried to hide it, but I could see the truth every time her hands trembled as she reached for a glass of water. One night, as I sat by her side, she took my hand in hers. "My little bird," she whispered, her voice faint, "promise me, you'll fly, no matter what cages they build around you." Tears blurred my vision. I nodded, squeezing her hand as if I could keep her here just a little longer. But inside, I felt the walls closing in. The violin was gone. Mother was slipping away, and Father's shadow only grew darker. Yet somehow, through the ashes of everything I had lost, a fire burned brighter inside me. If I couldn't sing with strings, I would sing with words. If I couldn't fly with wings, I would fly with hope. Because dreams don't die when instruments break. They only change their shape. The winter grew colder, and so did the house. Father's rage was a storm that never passed, but Mother's strength was fading like the last candle in the dark. Every cough shook her fragile body. Every breath sounded heavier than the last. I tried to smile for her sake, but inside, I was terrified. Lily clung to her night after night, whispering, "Don't leave us, Mama. Please don't leave." One evening, as the wind howled outside, I sat by her bed, holding her frail hand. She smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "My Emily," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "you've always carried music in your soul. Even when the world tried to silence it, you never let it die. Promise me you'll keep singing. Promise me you'll live." I nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I promise, Mama. I'll never stop. For you. For Lily." Her tired eyes softened. She turned her gaze toward Lily, who was curled up on the edge of the bed, clutching the broken fragment of my violin. "You're both my song," Mother breathed, her words fragile like glass. And then, with one final sigh, her hand slipped from mine. The world shattered in that moment. The house felt emptier than ever before. Lily screamed, her cries echoing through the walls. I held her, both of us shaking, drowning in grief. Father stood in the doorway, silent, his face cold, unmoved. He didn't shed a tear. He didn't speak. He just turned and walked away, leaving us in the wreckage of our sorrow. That night, I sat by Mother's side long after her body had gone still. The silence was unbearable. My chest ached as though someone had stolen the very air from my lungs. But then, something inside me whispered, soft, faint, but certain, "Her song lives in you." I closed my eyes, and though I had no violin, I hummed the lullaby she used to sing. My voice cracked, but I sang anyway. Lily joined me, her small, trembling voice weaving into mine. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't strong, but it was ours. And for the first time, I realized Mother's last song wasn't about music. It was about us, about surviving. The days after Mother's passing were a blur. Grief hung in the air like smoke that refused to fade. Lily cried herself to sleep every night, clutching the broken violin piece as if it were a piece of Mama's soul. Father didn't comfort us. He didn't mourn. Instead, he grew colder, angrier, more controlling. The house became a prison, every door a locked cage, every shadow a reminder that freedom was just a dream. But Mama's last words echoed in my mind. Promise me you'll live. Promise me you'll sing. And so, even in that cage, I began to rise. I wrote songs secretly in the dark. Poems on scraps of paper. Lullabies for Lily when her nightmares woke her in the middle of the night. Every word was a rebellion. Every note was defiance. I was the caged bird, but my voice could still fly. One afternoon, as Father stormed out to the tavern, I whispered to Lily, "Come with me." Her eyes widened. "Where?" "To the hill behind the house. Just for a little while. Just to breathe." She hesitated, fear flickering in her small face. But then she nodded, holding my hand tight. We ran, our feet crunching against the frozen ground, our breaths sharp in the cold air. For the first time in so long, I felt the wind against my skin, the sky stretching wide above me. At the top of the hill, we stopped, panting, laughing through our tears. I spread my arms, closing my eyes. "Do you hear it, Lily?" I whispered. "Hear what?" she asked. "The silence," I said. "It's not empty. It's waiting for us to fill it." And then, softly, I began to hum. The melody was one of Mama's songs, but this time it carried new strength. My voice wavered at first, but then it grew steadier, louder. Lily joined in, her sweet voice rising like a fragile flame in the wind. Together, we sang into the open air. Not for Father, not for the world, but for ourselves. In that moment, I understood. He could lock us inside walls. He could break our instruments. He could silence the house with his cruelty. But he could never silence us. Because a caged bird still sings. And someday, it learns to fly. The hill became our secret place. Every time Father left for hours, Lily and I would sneak away. Up there, the world felt bigger, freer, like maybe we still belonged to something beyond the walls of that cruel house. But each time we returned, the cage closed around us again. Father's voice thundered through the halls, his fists against the table, his eyes like cold knives. Lily grew quieter, hiding behind me whenever his footsteps echoed. I became her shield, but deep down I knew I couldn't shield her forever. One night, after Father had fallen into a drunken sleep, Lily whispered, "Emily, what if we just leave?" Her words hung heavy in the silence. Leave? The thought had burned in my chest for so long, but hearing her say it made it real. Where would we go? I asked softly. Anywhere, she breathed. Anywhere he can't find us. Maybe to the town. Maybe someone will help us. Her small hand tightened around mine. Her eyes shimmered with both fear and hope. In that moment, I realized if I stayed, I would die inside. But if I left, maybe I could save us both. The days that followed, I began to plan in secret. I gathered scraps of food when Father wasn't looking. I tucked away an old blanket, some coins Mother had hidden years ago. At night, when Lily slept, I whispered my plan to the walls, as if Mama's spirit still lingered to guide me. We will fly. We will be free. But freedom always comes with risk. And deep down, I knew if Father discovered even a whisper of what I was planning, his wrath would be worse than anything we had endured before. Still, as I looked at Lily's fragile frame curled beside me, I knew there was no other choice. We couldn't just survive anymore. We had to escape. Because Mama's last wish wasn't for us to endure. It was for us to live. The night was darker than usual, as if even the moon was hiding. The house creaked with silence, broken only by Father's drunken snores rumbling from his room. I sat on the floor, my heart pounding, staring at the small bundle I had prepared. A few coins, the blanket, scraps of bread, and the broken violin piece that Lily refused to let go of. This was it. The moment Mama's whispers had led us to, the night of decision. Lily stirred in her sleep, her tiny hand clutching mine even in her dreams. I bent down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Lily," I whispered gently. Her eyes fluttered open, confused at first, then wide with realization. "Is it time?" she breathed. I nodded. "Yes, but you must be very quiet. Not a sound." She nodded, clutching the violin piece to her chest as though it were her shield. Every creak of the wooden floor beneath our feet felt like thunder. My breath caught each time Father stirred in his sleep. One wrong step, one wrong sound, and everything would be over. We tiptoed to the door. My hands shook as I reached for the latch. For years, this house had been our cage, but tonight it was just walls and wood. Nothing more. The door groaned softly as it opened. Lily gasped, covering her mouth quickly. I froze. Father's snores faltered, then resumed. Relief washed over me. We slipped outside. The cold air hit us like freedom itself. The stars above seemed brighter than I had ever seen, as if Mama was watching from somewhere among them. Lily whispered, "Emily, are we really free?" I squeezed her hand. "Not yet, but tonight we begin." We hurried across the yard, the frost biting at our feet, our breaths sharp in the silence. Behind us, the house loomed like a shadow of our past. Ahead of us, the road stretched into the unknown. I didn't know where it would take us. I didn't know if safety lay at the end. But I knew this. We had chosen to live. And in that choice, we had already begun to fly. The road stretched out before us like an endless ribbon of darkness. Each step away from the house felt heavy, yet freeing, like chains breaking one by one. Lily clung tightly to my hand, her small fingers trembling. The night was cold, and the silence carried sounds we didn't recognize, distant owls, the rustling of trees, the crunch of our own footsteps. "Emily," she whispered, "what if he wakes up and comes after us?" I squeezed her hand, my voice steady even though fear gnawed at my chest. "Then we'll run faster. But remember, Lily, we're not alone. Mama is with us." Her eyes glistened in the dim starlight and she nodded, holding the broken violin piece closer. Hours passed as we walked. The road twisted through woods and open fields, each shadow whispering doubts. My legs ached, but I dared not stop. Finally, in the faint glow of dawn, we reached a small stream. Its water sparkled with silver light, and the soft trickle felt like music against the heavy silence of the night. Lily crouched down, cupping her hands to drink. I watched her, realizing how fragile she looked, yet how strong she truly was. For the first time in so long, I felt hope flicker inside me. But just as I began to breathe easier, the sound of heavy footsteps broke the calm. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. From the shadows of the trees, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked, moving slowly toward us. Lily gasped, clutching my arm. Emily, is it him? I swallowed hard, pulling her behind me, my entire body trembling. The figure stopped just a few paces away. The silence stretched. The only sound was the rushing of the stream. Then, in a low voice, the stranger spoke. You shouldn't be here. It's not safe. The man stood still, half hidden by the shadows of the trees. His cloak was worn, his face lined with age and hardship, but his eyes did not carry the cruelty I feared. Lily clutched at my sleeve, whispering, Emily, what do we do? I held her closer. My voice was barely a breath. Stay behind me. The man raised his hands slowly, showing he carried no weapon. I don't mean you harm, he said softly. But these woods, they aren't safe, especially for children wandering alone. Something in his tone made my heart pause. There was no thunder, no anger, no sharpness like Father's. Only a weariness, a gentleness. Still, I didn't trust easily. We don't need your help, I said firmly, even though my knees trembled. Just let us pass. The man tilted his head, studying us. His gaze lingered on Lily's thin frame, her shivering body wrapped in the blanket, the broken violin piece she clung to as if it were life itself. You're running, he murmured. I can see it in your eyes. Lily's lip trembled. She whispered so softly I almost didn't hear. Emily, maybe he can help us. My heart squeezed. Hope was dangerous. It could save us or destroy us. The man crouched low, his voice quieter now. I have daughters of my own, he said. I would never hurt you. If you keep walking down this road, you'll reach the town by morning, but the patrols pass here at dawn. If they find you, they'll ask questions you may not want to answer. His words chilled me. Patrols? Questions? What if they sent us back to Father? The man looked at us one last time. Then he reached into his cloak and placed something on the ground between us, a small piece of bread and a worn leather flask of water. You don't have to trust me, he said, stepping back. But take these. You'll need them. He turned, fading into the shadows of the trees, as quietly as he had appeared. Lily's wide eyes met mine. Emily, do we follow him? Or do we keep walking? The question hung heavy in the morning air. For the first time since we left the house, the road ahead split in two. The stranger's bread and water lay between us like a test. Trust or fear. Hope or doubt. Lily looked at me with pleading eyes. Emily, I'm so tired. Please, let's just eat. I hesitated, but finally nodded. We shared the bread, drank the water, and for the first time in days, I saw color return to her cheeks. As dawn painted the sky in pale gold, we walked again. Each step felt lighter, though my mind wrestled with questions. Who is that man? Why did he help us? By noon, we saw the rooftops of a distant town. Smoke curled from chimneys. Voices carried in the breeze. Civilization. Safety. But as we neared, my heart sank. Patrols, the very ones the stranger had warned us about, stood at the gates. Their sharp eyes scanned every passerby. What if they send us back? Lily whispered, her hand squeezing mine so tight it hurt. I took a deep breath. Then we don't let them. We tell our story. The truth. And maybe, just maybe, someone will finally listen. We reached the gate. A soldier blocked our way. His gaze lingered on our ragged clothes, on Lily's trembling frame. Where are your parents? He demanded. For a moment, silence crushed me. But then, as if Mama herself gave me strength, I lifted my chin. Our mother is gone, I said firmly. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. Our father is dead to us. He hurt us. We can't go back. Please, we just want to live. The soldier frowned, uncertainty in his eyes. Another guard approached, and then a miracle. A woman in simple clothes stepped forward from the crowd, her face full of pity. She knelt before Lily. "You poor child," she whispered. Then she turned to the guards. "Shame on you if you send them back. Can't you see what they've endured?" The guards hesitated, then waved us through. Just like that, the gates opened. The gates closed behind us, and for the first time in our lives, we breathed without fear. The town was alive, warm light spilling from windows, laughter drifting from the market, and the smell of bread baking in ovens. It was a world that felt like it had been waiting for us all along. Lily's hand never left mine. She ran ahead, then turned, her eyes sparkling with a mix of awe and relief. "Emily, we're really free." I smiled, my chest tight with emotion. "Yes, Lily, we're free." We found a small house at the edge of town. A kind family took us in, offering warmth, food, and a place to rest. For the first time, I saw Lily laugh without fear, saw her twirl without worry, saw her clutch the broken violin piece with pride rather than sorrow. And me? I carried my heart like a wound that had begun to heal. I opened the violin case Mr. Harris had given me, and though it had been broken and repaired countless times, I drew the bow across the strings. The first note trembled, raw and uncertain. But then I played again and again, letting the music fill the room, the town, the world I had longed for. Mother's voice echoed in my mind, soft and eternal. "You've always carried music in your soul. Never let it die." Lily danced to the melody, her laughter mingling with the notes. My tears fell freely, but they were not of sorrow. They were of triumph, of survival, of hope. For the first time, I realized the music had never truly been broken. It lived in us, in our courage, in our hearts. And now, at last, the final note rang clear. We were free. The darkness was behind us. And the future, though uncertain, was ours to shape.